It was our wedding anniversary. The day I found out about the betrayal. In the stinging aftermath, I made a decision fueled by bitterness and a desperate need for control. I would approach my husband's fiercest rival. I would flirt with him, seduce him, make Marcus feel the same gutting pain I felt. But somewhere along the way, the lines blurred, the act became real, and I was the one who fell. "Caleb," I whispered one night, the word thick with alcohol and reckless abandon, "I want you." His gaze held mine, intense, unwavering. "If you want me, Sophia," he murmured, his voice a low vibration, "take me." But not because of him. "How's Isabel doing these days?" The question slipped out, soft and insidious, as my fingers fumbled with the buttons of his crisp white shirt. Marcus's hand stilled its movement on my skin. "Sophia," he ground out, each syllable tight with annoyance, "can we please not talk about her right now?" "Then why?" My voice trembled slightly, betraying the hurt I tried so hard to mask. "Why do you always close your eyes when we make love?" A sigh escaped him, heavy and resigned. That was Marcus, my husband of 2 years. And yet, every encounter felt illicit, stolen. Why? Because our lawfully wedded union, blessed by signatures and indifferent witnesses, unfolded exclusively in darkness. Thick blackout curtains drawn, lamps unlit, we moved like shadows, like lovers terrified of being discovered. Perhaps if he couldn't see me, truly see me, he could pretend it was Isabel beneath him. Isabel Morrow. His white moonlight, the luminous ghost who haunted our marriage. They had been the golden couple, their love story spanning 11 years, from high school sweethearts to brilliant medical doctorates. Everyone envied them. I was just a classmate, orbiting their bright star from the periphery. During one of their tumultuous breakups, I'd been the one to pull Marcus through a month of gray despair. He'd leaned on me, confided in me, let me hold him. And then, the call came. Isabel, far away in America, wanting him back. We were standing just outside the City Hall registry office, the ink barely dry on our marriage certificate, when her name lit up his phone screen. Tears welled instantly in Marcus's eyes. Raw, undisguised longing. Yes, I knew, deep down, I had always known. Marcus loved only Isabel. But I'd still wanted him, desperately, foolishly enough to marry him knowing I was second best. Now, I was reaping the consequences. Night after night, Marcus would take his release in the suffocating dark, then turn away, exhausted, leaving me hollowed out and disgusted with my own complicity. Marcus. Marcus. My nails dug into the tense muscles of his back, seeking any reaction, any acknowledgement. He grunted, a flicker of response to the pain. "Can you come home tomorrow night? Please? To be with me? I have surgery scheduled. Probably can't get away. It's our wedding anniversary, Marcus." The words felt like ashes in my mouth. "We'll see," he mumbled, already drifting away. "You have to come back." Frustration surged, and I fumbled for the remote, flicking on the bedside lamp. The sudden light was harsh, carving shadows on his face. I saw the fine sheen of sweat on his sculpted abdomen. Yes. This was the only time he seemed to truly need me, or at least, my body. He once told me I possessed a unique blend of innocence and raw sensuality that no man could resist. Empty words, designed to keep me compliant. "Only if you make it worth my while tonight," he murmured, reaching over and plunging us back into darkness. Mom called first thing in the morning. "Sophia, darling, it's your anniversary with Marcus today. You didn't forget, did you?" I was at the wine shop, carefully selecting a bottle for the evening, trying to ignore the knot in my stomach. "I remember, Mom." A sigh of relief whispered through the phone. Marrying Marcus, the successful Dr. Davies, was, in my mother's eyes, the pinnacle of my achievements. Never mind that his parents and Marcus himself treated her with a cool distance that bordered on disdain. In 2 years of marriage, my widowed mother had never once felt comfortable enough to step inside our spacious, sterile home. I hated them for it. But the prize, having Marcus, had always seemed worth the humiliation. Until now. I spent the day transforming our apartment. Rose petals, deep crimson like spilled wine, littered the polished floor. A new, expensive aromatherapy diffuser filled the air with a cloying scent meant to signify romance. As dusk bled into night, I slipped into the black evening gown I'd bought specifically for this occasion. A delicate silk slip dress with thin straps, cut low to hint at the curves Marcus claimed to admire. Midnight came and went. Marcus didn't return. My calls to his cell went straight to voicemail. Heart pounding, I dialed his department at the hospital. Dr. Davies doesn't have surgery tonight, a young nurse informed me politely. He left with some colleagues right after his shift ended. Just as I was about to hang up, numbly, another voice piped up in the background, carelessly loud. Oh, I think Dr. Davies went to Dr. Moreau's birthday party. A faint buzzing started in my ears. Dr. Moreau. Isabel. My wedding anniversary was Isabel's birthday, and Marcus had chosen to celebrate with her, leaving me alone amidst the wilting roses and false promises. It was a cruel, exquisite irony. The sprawling 300-square-meter apartment suddenly felt suffocating, pressing in on me. Every petal on the floor seemed to morph into Marcus's and Isabel's mocking faces. Gasping for air, I grabbed the nearest coat, a simple trench, and fled the apartment. It felt like an escape, but also, terrifyingly, like a kind of liberation. Something strong, I managed, slumping onto a bar stool near the bartender. The dim lighting felt both exposing and concealing. Certainly, madam. Long Island iced tea, margarita, Cuba Libre, Bloody Mary, or perhaps a blueberry tea. The bartender rattled off. The name's like an ancient incantation, a spell to erase heartbreak. The low, amber light glinted off the rows of bottles behind him. Cuba Libre. Freedom. After 2 years as a gilded canary in a lightless cage, the word itself was intoxicating. I'll sit over there. I gestured vaguely towards a plush sofa tucked away in a corner alcove and started to move. Excuse me, madam, the bartender called after me, his smile polite but firm. There's a minimum charge for the booth seating. My first time in a bar like this, and I was already making rookie mistakes. Humiliation prickled under my skin. Just as I was about to retreat back to the bar, a lazy drawl cut through the background hum. She's with me. Oh! Right away, Mr. Hale. No problem at all. The bartender's tone shifted instantly to one of effusive deference. I rolled my eyes inwardly. Great, some greasy opportunist. Then I turned and found myself looking into the unexpectedly refined face of Caleb Hale. I knew who he was. Marcus complained about him constantly, the arrogant, undisciplined, third-year medical student he was forced to mentor, the dean's son. Their animosity had escalated to a physical fight last month. While patching up Marcus's split lip, I'd caught a glimpse of Caleb dabbing at a bleeding cut on his forehead outside the clinic room, his expression stormy. One, a rising star surgeon. The other, the dean's privileged offspring. The hospital administration had opted for damage control, forcing Marcus to continue supervising Caleb. Marcus had been furious, pacing our apartment all night after hearing the decision. A spark ignited within me, sharp and vengeful. What a perfect, terrible opportunity. Marcus, do you want to know what betrayal tastes like? Thank you, I murmured, sinking onto the plush velvet beside Caleb, allowing my hip to brush slightly against his thigh. Up close, his features were even more striking. Pale, almost luminous skin under the bar lights, revealing the faint blue tracery of a vein at his temple. A straight, aristocratic nose above surprisingly full, naturally pink lips curved into a subtle smile, a cupid's bow. A single diamond stud winked in his left ear, adding a touch of rebellious flair to his otherwise polished appearance. Part wolf, part choir boy. No wonder he drove the stoic Marcus to distraction. Seeing me settle, Caleb deliberately stubbed out the cigarette he'd been holding. Well, Caleb, aren't you going to introduce us? A young man, looking about Caleb's age, slung an arm around his female companion, grinning suggestively. Hey there, sister, he leered at me. Bit overdressed for a bar crawl, aren't you? Especially that coat. A ripple of knowing laughter went through the small group of maybe 5 or 6 young men and women clustered around the low table, nursing beers. Heat rushed to my cheeks. My name is S. No need, Caleb cut me off smoothly. He leaned back, draping an arm casually along the back of the sofa behind me, his posture protective. He leveled a cool gaze at the obnoxious young man. Alex, didn't you say you had another party to get to? His tone was mild, but the underlying command was unmistakable. Alex's bravado deflated instantly. Oh, shoot, right? You reminded me. Guys, next round's on me. Mansion house. Let's roll. He practically scrambled to his feet, ushering the others away with exaggerated enthusiasm. The pulsing heart of the bar throbbed with music and chatter, but in our corner, shielded by the U-shape of the sofas, an almost unnerving silence descended. We sat in the middle of the central sofa, a careful distance between us. I had to break the tension. "Do you know who I am?" "I do," he replied succinctly, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. He wasn't looking at me, his profile sharp against the dim light. Through the thin fabric of his white shirt, I could trace the elegant lines of his shoulder blades, like folded wings. Tonight, I thought with a thrill of dangerous intent, he's my angel. My dark angel. Of course, he knew me. Marcus was his supervising physician, his adversary. The silence stretched again. Clearly, small talk wasn't going to cut it. Revenge and a bitter recklessness surged through me. I slowly slipped the trench coat from my shoulders, letting it pool on the seat beside me. Underneath, the black silk dress clung to my curves. The neckline plunged dramatically, revealing the soft swell of my breasts, the shadowed cleft between them. Caleb turned his head deliberately, his gaze sweeping over me, lingering for a fraction of a second on my décolletage before rising to meet my eyes. Then, his focus shifted, sharpening. "What's that?" he asked, his voice suddenly cool, almost detached. "What?" I glanced down, assuming he meant the delicate swan pendant nestled against my skin. I lifted it slightly, leaning forward, intentionally emphasizing the lines of my neck and collarbone. "It's a swan. Hook, line, and sinker," I thought triumphantly. "Not that." His eyes flickered towards my upper right arm. "That?" He was indicating the scar. A pale, slightly raised line, about 5 centimeters long, just below my shoulder. A sudden, sharp pang went through me, unexpected and unwelcome. It was from high school. Late evening, walking home from cram school. I'd stumbled upon Marcus being cornered by some local thugs. Without thinking, fueled by years of silent, unrequited adoration, I jumped between them. The flash of metal, a searing pain. Marcus's parents had sent a fruit basket and a commemorative banner to the hospital. The school held an assembly praising my bravery for saving the top student. As a mediocre student myself, standing on that stage, seeing Marcus smile gratefully at me from the audience, I'd felt, absurdly, that single smile was worth any sacrifice. "Just a stupid fight when I was a kid," I lied, forcing a casual shrug. "Got careless." "Did it hurt?" His voice was still cool, but his eyes held something else. A flicker of something that looked startlingly like empathy, like starlight reflected on a frozen Nordic lake. My own eye stung. About the scar, Marcus had only ever said one thing, standing stiffly by my hospital bed: "Sophia Bellwether, thank you for your actions. If you encounter any difficulties with the medical expenses, please let me know." He'd never asked about it again, never acknowledged its existence, as if ignoring it could erase the debt, erase the moment I'd bled for him. "Wait here," Caleb said abruptly, getting to his feet. He was tall, easily over 6 feet, with the lean, athletic build of youth. He returned a few moments later holding a small, transparent sheet. A temporary tattoo sticker. He carefully peeled off the backing, his movements precise. He leaned closer, positioning the sticker directly over the scar. I felt the whisper-light touch of his fingers as he gently smoothed it down, then slowly, carefully, peeled away the top layer. His hands were elegant, long-fingered, carrying the faint, clean scent of antiseptic that clung to doctors. His fingertips were cool against my skin. His dark, thick lashes brushed my collarbone as he concentrated. The proximity made my breath catch. "There." He looked up, and a sudden, heart-stopping smile lit his face, revealing faint dimples. "All better." Where the pale scar had been, 3 stylized roses now bloomed in a vibrant, almost defiant shade of fuchsia, their stems seemingly growing from the line itself. It was unexpectedly beautiful. Cool, yet warm. Edgy, yet elegant. "Thank you," I murmured, tracing the outline of the roses with my fingertip. "It suits you," he said softly, his gaze fixed on the tattoo, a strange light flickering in his eyes. I looked at him, surprised. He smiled again, a softer, more introspective curve of his lips, and lowered his gaze slightly. His voice was like music, low and resonant, striking chords I didn't know I possessed. "That rose, incomparable, single, is the platonic rose, the primal. The rose of my blind, burning verses, beyond song. The unattainable rose." He lifted his eyes on the last line, meeting mine directly. His dark pupils seemed vast, swirling with unreadable emotions. Borges, I breathed, taking a quick sip of my Cuba Libre to hide the sudden tremor in my hand. How did you know? Is it so surprising? A hint of defensiveness touched his tone. Did you assume I was illiterate? Not illiterate, I countered, trying to regain my equilibrium. Just, maybe not quite so cultured. He just looked at me for a moment, then gave a slight shake of his head. I'm not like a rose, I said, suddenly feeling the need to deflate the moment, the unexpected intimacy. Roses are clichés. Roses are never the cliché, Sophia, Caleb said, his gaze unwavering, holding mine captive. The tenderness in his eyes was like a vast, deep ocean, threatening to drown me. Only the people who fail to truly see them are. Something fragile inside me cracked. And simultaneously, something frozen began to melt. A tiny, almost imperceptible shift, but I felt it keenly. I'm just a woman Marcus Davies finds tiresome, I said, bitterness rising again. I took another large gulp of my drink. The sweet, potent mix felt alien against the desolation inside me. Caleb fell silent for a moment, not offering platitudes or arguments. He glanced at his watch. It's late. Let me take you home. Caleb drove a pristine white G-Wagon. With the windows down, the cool night air rushed in, carrying the scent of rain-washed pavement and distant exhaust fumes. We sped along the deserted overpass, the city. Lights blurring into streaks of color. Fei Wong's ethereal voice drifted from the speakers, singing Passenger. For a few moments, suspended between the city and the sky, I felt a dizzying sense of freedom. Then, a jolt of reality. Caleb, are you drunk driving? He glanced at me, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. No, I haven't had anything to drink. But you were holding a glass all night. It was water. You went to a bar to drink water? Forgive me if I find that hard to believe. He turned his head fully for a second, the corners of his lips lifting in that faint, dimpled smile. I was planning on drinking, he admitted. Then I saw you. I remembered then. The table had been littered with half-empty beer bottles left by Alex and the others, but Caleb's glass had remained stubbornly full and clear. Why? He looked back at the road, but I saw the curve of his smile deepen. Because I knew I'd be driving you home. My heart gave another sharp, painful lurch, like a flash of lightning illuminating the dark landscape of my emotions. The 10-minute drive felt impossibly short. Caleb pulled over about 200 meters from the entrance to my apartment complex, cutting the engine. He got out, leaned against the hood, and lit a cigarette, waiting for me. In the pre-dawn gloom, the streetlights cast long shadows. Through the swirling gray smoke, his expression was unreadable. Go on home, he said quietly. I'll watch you get inside. He dropped the cigarette, crushed it under his shoe, then stepped forward and draped my trench coat back over my shoulders. His hands lingered for a moment, adjusting the collar, a surprisingly gentle touch. I started to turn, to thank him again. His hand suddenly landed lightly on my shoulder, stopping me. His voice was low, almost rough, tinged with something I couldn't decipher. A plea. Don't turn around. I walked towards the entrance, the click of my heels echoing in the stillness. At the gate, I couldn't resist. I glanced back. The small red ember of his cigarette was gone. He was already back in the driver's seat. The headlights flashed once, brightly, as he turned the car around and drove away into the fading night. Lying in the bathtub, watching the blue bath bomb slowly bleed pink into the warm water, I felt the world tilting on its axis. The sky outside was beginning to pale with the first hints of dawn. I gently touched the skin on my arm where the tattoo had been. The fuchsia roses, beaded with water, seemed impossibly vivid, like his unspoken words, his hesitant gestures. My mind wouldn't stop replaying the night. Caleb. His unexpected tenderness towards my scar. His voice reciting poetry, calling me an unattainable rose. His smile, bright and disarming. His underlying melancholy, the cool reserve that hinted at hidden depths. The scent of him, clean antiseptic mingling with something citrusy, maybe grapefruit shower gel, undercut by the faint tang of bar smoke. I must be going crazy. I'd loved Marcus for 11 years, obsessed over him, molded my life around him. And now this young man, this near stranger I'd spent barely 2 hours with, was consuming my thoughts. Marcus was right about one thing: Caleb Hale was dangerous. A charmer. God, I wanted him to charm me again. But it wouldn't happen. We hadn't exchanged numbers, hadn't made plans. It was a fleeting encounter, a strange interlude. We would return to our separate lives, orbits never intersecting again. Tomorrow, I would still be Mrs. Davies. And he would still be Caleb Hale. Sorry, I had a work dinner, couldn't get back. Marcus's voice came through the closed bathroom door. Even now, he kept his distance. Your anniversary gift is on the console table in the entryway. Okay, I murmured, knowing my response hardly mattered. I took a deep breath and slid further down into the water, letting it close over my head for a silent, submerged moment. Marcus's gift was predictable, another bouquet of roses, identical to last year's, and the most expensive piece from my favorite jeweler's current collection. Tasteless, unimaginative, yet still, pathetically, capable of momentarily soothing my restless heart. For the next few days, Marcus was unusually attentive. He came home for dinner on time. He smiled at me, a glimpse of the charming boy I'd fallen for in high school. He even gave me a quick kiss goodbye before leaving for work one morning. For a fragile moment, life felt almost normal, secure. Hope, that treacherous weed, began to sprout. In the shower one evening, scrubbing my arm, I deliberately rubbed away the faint outline where the temporary tattoo had been, erasing the last trace of Caleb. Which is why, when Isabel Morrow's name once again illuminated Marcus's phone screen lying face up on the bedside table, the ground beneath me crumbled. I swayed, grabbing the nightstand for support. Isabel, where tonight? My place again? Followed by a playful emoji. Each word was a razor blade, meticulously slicing through scar tissue I hadn't even realized was beginning to heal. Marcus emerged from the shower, toweling his hair, and saw me staring at his phone. He froze. Sophia? What's wrong? Nothing, I lied, forcing my hands to straighten the duvet beside the phone. Just 3 hours since you got home from the hospital. You're going back already? So late. Night shift tonight, he said smoothly, walking towards the closet. He emerged buttoning a fresh shirt. I'm heading out. See you in the morning. He walked out of the bedroom without a backward glance. He was going to her. Again. And I didn't even have the courage to ask. The fear of losing him, of being utterly alone after dedicating 11 years of my life to his shadow, was paralyzing. The bed felt vast and empty beside me, 2 pillows stark white against the dark headboard. How many pillows did Isabel have on her bed? Did they talk about me when they were together? Did they laugh? My thoughts spiraled, tangling like broken threads, threatening to suffocate me. Tonight, the moon was exceptionally bright, casting long, skeletal shadows across the bedroom floor. Looking out the window, I felt a distinct sense of emptiness in a specific spot down on the street below. A place I'd never paid attention to before. But now, having seen someone stand there, watching me, only to vanish. It felt vacant. Missing something vital. That was where Caleb had stood. In the moonlight, watching me walk away, extinguishing the small red eye of his cigarette before disappearing. The river glimmered in the distance, the moon a perfect silver disk reflected on its surface. I went back to the bar. The same corner booth. He was there, laughing with a group of friends, a louder, more boisterous laugh than I'd heard before. He tipped back a small bottle of beer, his Adam's apple. Bobbing, the muscles in his throat working. He wore a loose-fitting, drop-shoulder white t-shirt, revealing the elegant line of his collarbone. Effortlessly cool. Caleb, man, slow down. Alex was saying, a hand on Caleb's arm, trying to moderate his drinking. Then Alex saw me approaching. His eyes widened slightly, and he followed Caleb's suddenly fixed gaze towards me. Speak of the devil. Or maybe the antidote. All right, guys, I think that's our cue. Let's give the good doctor some space. After they'd cleared out, leaving a wake of empty bottles and fading laughter, I slid onto the sofa next to Caleb. Without asking, I picked up the half-full glass of whiskey on the rocks in front of him and took a sip. It burned pleasantly going down. Caleb seemed a little drunk, his eyes softer, unfocused, holding that dangerous blend of innocence and heat. Pure and predatory. You're the only one who's ever been kind to me, I whispered, leaning against him, resting my head on his left shoulder. It felt solid, warm. He didn't speak, just continued to gently swirl the remaining beer in the bottle he held loosely in his right hand. He sat slightly hunched, perfectly still, as if afraid any sudden movement would startle me away. His familiar scent enveloped me, that clean, sharp tang of hospital disinfectant, but underneath, something uniquely him. I closed my eyes, breathing it in deeply, letting the intoxicating sense of oblivion wash over me. Caleb, like Marcus, possessed a certain cool reserve. But Marcus's coolness towards me was a chilling indifference. Caleb's felt different. Guarded, perhaps? Was Marcus warm towards Isabel? Probably. Warm like Caleb was towards me right now? The thought sent a fresh wave of despair crashing over me. The music shifted, slowing to a sultry blues track. The lights dimmed further. Impulse, raw and reckless, took over. I reached up, twining my arms around Caleb's neck. Using his surprise and slight intoxication to my advantage, I pushed him gently backward onto the sofa cushions. He landed with a soft thud, his arms automatically coming up to steady me as he fell, thinking I was losing my balance. Now, I was sprawled half on top of him, my body soft and pliant against his much harder frame. The thin silk of my dress offered little barrier. He lay still beneath me, his hands hovering uncertainly at my waist before dropping away. He stared up at me, his face shadowed and unreadable in the dim light, his long lashes casting flickering patterns on his cheekbones. But his eyes burned with a fierce, youthful fire. Our faces were inches apart. I could feel the heat radiating from his skin, smell the whiskey on his breath mingling with his own clean scent. The air crackled with unspoken tension, thick with alcohol and burgeoning desire. Beneath the thin silk, I could feel the undeniable evidence of his arousal, hard and hot against my thigh. "Caleb," I breathed, my voice husky, "I want to sleep with you." His eyes, dark pools reflecting the low lights, flared. His Adam's apple moved as he swallowed hard. His voice, when it came, was rough, strained. "Sophia, you don't need to go through all this trouble just to sleep with me." "What?" "If you want me, you can have me," he repeated, his gaze intense. But not because of him. Not as revenge. That night, Caleb Hale refused me. Later, after many more drinks, I ended up crying in his arms again, curled against his chest on the dimly lit sofa. Shielded by the familiar scent of antiseptic and something uniquely Caleb, I poured out 11 years of frustration, loneliness, and quiet humiliations. He just held me, silent, stroking my hair, offering a solid, non-judgmental presence in the wreckage of my life. There are things in this world that cannot be hidden for long. Lies, for instance. And love. It was an ordinary afternoon, sunny and deceptively calm. I was delivering dinner to Marcus at the hospital, his specific request from the day before, kung pao chicken, scrambled eggs with tomatoes, rice, and soup. I saw him down the long, sterile corridor, leading his usual entourage of residents and medical students on rounds. Dressed in his immaculate white coat, a slight frown creased the space above his surgical mask. The students trailed behind, clipboards in hand, scribbling notes diligently. He spotted me approaching with the insulated lunch bag. Pulling down his mask, he offered a brief, distracted smile. "Sophia, you're early. Just leave it in my office, okay?" He turned and disappeared into a patient's room without waiting for a reply. Caleb was walking near the back of the group. He wore glasses today, the diamond stud gone from his ear. He looked serious, professional, every inch the dedicated young doctor. Alex, walking beside him, looked utterly bewildered, his eyes darting between Caleb, me, and the retreating figure of Marcus, clearly trying to piece together the impossible triangle. I walked past them, head held high, pretending normalcy. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Caleb lean against the doorframe of the patient room Marcus had entered, clipboard tucked under his arm. He flicked a glance in my direction, brief and seemingly casual, but it sent an involuntary jolt through my system. My heart hammered against my ribs. I forced myself to keep walking, footsteps echoing slightly on the polished linoleum. "Eating already?" I pushed open the door to Marcus's office. Isabel Moreau was sitting comfortably in Marcus's ergonomic chair, deeply engrossed in a game on her phone. She looked much the same as she had years ago. Short, stylish hair, subtle makeup. The white coat added an air of cool authority. "What are you doing here?" I asked, standing frozen in the doorway, struggling to keep my voice even. "Department's quiet. Thought I'd drop by," she replied without looking up, her tone dismissive. Her fingers flew across the screen. "Don't worry, I didn't come specifically hoping you'd find me here." Despite her words, she made no move to leave. On her wrist, gleaming under the fluorescent lights, was a watch identical to the anniversary gift Marcus had given me. The sight was blinding. Marcus and I are married, I stated, the words sounding weak even to my own ears. He proposed to me. It felt less like a statement of fact and more like a desperate attempt to convince myself. Since high school, Isabel had always had this unnerving ability to make me feel small, inadequate. She finally paused her game, looking up at me with a smirk. And you honestly believe Marcus wanted to propose to you, Sophia? Are you really that naive? Her patronizing tone ignited a spark of anger, but it was quickly smothered by a familiar wave of helplessness and fear. My voice softened, taking on a pleading edge I despised. Isabel, what do you want? What I want. She leaned back in the chair, observing me like a cat playing with a cornered mouse. What does that have to do with you? Face it, Sophia. I've always won. Haven't I? That's not true. Marcus loves My words were cut off by a deafening crash. The office door burst violently inward, slamming against the wall. I felt a tremendous shove from behind, sending me stumbling backward, landing hard on the low sofa against the far wall. Isabel screamed, scrambling out of the chair, her feet splashing through the spilled contents of my carefully prepared seaweed and egg drop soup that had scattered across the floor. She bolted past me out the now open doorway. The world dissolved into chaos. Shouting, running footsteps, confusion. The shock, the sudden impact, the perceived danger, it all paralyzed me. I lay sprawled on the sofa, my mind blank, muscles locked, unable even to cry out. Before I could fully register what was happening, strong arms enveloped me, pulling me into a protective embrace. The clean, sharp scent of antiseptic filled my senses. It was him. Pressed against my cheek was a cool metal name badge. Caleb Hale, medical intern. I sagged against him, trembling uncontrollably. From the relative safety of his arms, I heard the commotion outside the office doorway. You weren't holding a knife. Why were you running? I yelled at you to stop. You were yelling right behind me. I thought someone was chasing me with a knife. I was too scared to look back. I just kicked the nearest door open. A false alarm. A misunderstanding born of panic. Slowly, carefully, Caleb loosened his hold, helping me sit up. My eyes met Marcus's across the small office. He had just released Isabel, who was clinging to his arm, looking shaken. He pulled down his mask, his expression a mixture of concern and acute embarrassment as he hurried towards me. Sophia, are you all right? In that split second of perceived danger, his instinct, his immediate reaction, had been to protect Isabel. He had, effectively, left me to face whatever threat might have been behind that door. Left me for dead. Tears, hot and stinging, finally broke free, blurring my vision. I scrambled to my feet, shoving his outstretched hand away. Don't touch me. I choked out, turning and running from the office, from him, from the unbearable truth. I couldn't bear to hear any excuses, any explanations. He loved her. He truly loved her. Just like I, years ago, had unthinkingly thrown myself in front of a knife for him. And all this time, he'd let me build my life around the beautiful, fragile illusion of our marriage, watching coldly as I agonized over his moods, starved for his affection, sinking deeper and deeper into the lonely abyss of unrequited love. Every compromise, every swallowed tear, every desperate hope I'd clung to, it all crystallized in that single, terrifying moment, then shattered, evaporating into nothingness. Caleb, why are you following me? I demanded, my voice sharp with unshed tears, as I practically ran down the fire escape stairs. It's raining outside, he replied simply, his footsteps echoing steadily behind me. His voice, laced with genuine concern, pursued me down the echoing concrete stairwell. Sophia, take the elevator, please? Running downstairs like this is bad for your knees. Slow down, please. Hold the railing. Let me carry you down. Please? I ignored him, my vision blurred, focusing only on putting one foot in front of the other, escaping the suffocating confines of the hospital of my life. Is this how you treat your rescuer? Caleb's voice held a trace of playful exasperation, cutting through my despair. Suddenly, he vaulted over the railing, landing lightly on the step two below me, white coat billowing, effectively blocking my path. He saw the raw misery in my eyes, the tear tracks on my cheeks. His expression softened instantly. Gently, he reached out, pulling me towards him, one hand coming up to stroke my back soothingly. His eyes, dark and serious now, seemed to hold galaxies of understanding. Sophia, he murmured, his voice incredibly soft. Don't be sad. You have me now. A sob escaped me. I looked up at him, eyes red-rimmed and swollen. Caleb, I choked out, the words tasting like desperation and defeat. Can I sleep with you now? A shadow passed over Caleb's face, his brow furrowing slightly. The subtle pattern of his tie seemed to ripple as he gave a slow, almost imperceptible nod. If it makes you happy, Sophia, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Anything. The last dam broke. All the pain, the humiliation, the years of repressed sorrow, surged forth. I collapsed against him, burying my face in his chest, and finally let myself weep, loud, ragged sobs shaking my entire body. Let's go home, okay? He murmured eventually, his hand stroking my hair. Caleb, I sobbed into the crisp fabric of his shirt, I don't have a home anymore. Marcus and I divorced a week later. The process was surprisingly swift, almost anticlimactic. The house, the car, they were his premarital assets. Our finances during the marriage were clearly separated. I'd always paid for our household expenses from my own earnings. I returned his bank card, untouched. Standing under the portico of the City Hall registry office, sheltering from a sudden downpour, Marcus stood in front of me, partially shielding me from the wind-driven rain. His back was soaked. Sophia, I'm so sorry. He wouldn't meet my eyes, his gaze fixed somewhere past my shoulder. For the first time, I saw a flicker of something akin to fear in his usually impassive face, like a lost child. Whatever you want. I can give it to you. It seemed only now, faced with the finality of the signed papers, did he truly believe I could leave him. There was a time when those words, that sliver of vulnerability, would have sent me into ecstatic relief. I would have rushed to reassure him, maybe even done something silly to make him smile, desperate to grasp that fragile lifeline. But that day, standing in the drumming rain, I simply tightened my grip on the handle of my umbrella. The rain's really coming down, I said quietly, looking out at the gray street. We should head back. The rain lashed down, plastering strands of hair to both our faces. I told my mother about the divorce later that day. There was a long, heavy silence on the other end of the line. Finally, she sighed. Men. Sophia. They play around, but they always come home eventually. Marcus always let you handle the money. You should have been content with that. In one phone call, I became an outcast, abandoned by the two pillars of my former life. I didn't sleep with Caleb. Watching him, really seeing him beyond my own pain and vengeful urges, I realized Marcus's dismissive descriptions couldn't have been further from the truth. Caleb wasn't just some spoiled, rebellious kid. He was decent, restrained. During the time I was still married, despite the charged moments, he had maintained a respectful distance. Apart from those comforting embraces when I was falling apart, he'd never initiated physical intimacy. His restraint felt like a quiet strength, an unexpected form of chivalry. And when danger had seemed real, he hadn't hesitated to protect me. A man like that, he didn't deserve to be a pawn in my messy revenge plot. We hadn't exchanged contact information. It was better this way, I told myself. A clean break. I rented a small apartment in a distant suburb, throwing myself into my writing with frantic energy, hoping to lose myself in the stories of others, to forget my own painful narrative. I became a hermit, venturing out only for necessities, bundled up, head down, avoiding eye contact. My tiny apartment became both sanctuary and prison. I fell into a cycle of obsessive cleaning, showering multiple times a day, scrubbing floors that were already spotless, singing the same mournful song over and over, bursting into tears for no apparent reason when the emptiness became too vast. Love, pain, resentment, longing, regret. The emotions warred within me, tearing me apart. One night, the darkness felt absolute. Utterly silent, pressing in from all sides, sucking the air from my lungs. It felt like being drawn into a black hole. Suffocating. I stumbled onto the small balcony, gasping for breath, the cool night air doing little to ease the crushing weight on my chest. It wasn't until much later, looking back, that I understood how close I came to the edge that night, how tightly depression had its grip around my throat. When Caleb Hale knocked on my door, I hadn't left the apartment in 10 days. I must have looked dreadful, cheeks hollowed, eyes dull, hair unkempt. I saw the flicker of shock, quickly masked by concern, cross his face before I could react. My immediate instinct was to slam the door shut. A strong arm, leanly muscled, blocked its path. Caleb offered a small, tentative smile, casually holding up a bag of fruit he was carrying. "Hi," he said, his tone deliberately light. "I'm your new neighbor. Just thought I'd come say hello." My apartment was a disaster zone. Discarded manuscript pages littered the floor, empty takeout containers piled on the small table. I stood stiffly by the door, watching coldly. As he began, without asking, to clear the debris from the table, his movements efficient and calm. He wiped the surface clean with a damp cloth he produced from somewhere. His gaze fell on the prescription bottles lined up near my laptop. Antidepressants. He froze for a fraction of a second, his hand hovering over the table. "Caleb, don't waste your time on me," I said flatly, my voice raspy from disuse. "I'm already rotten inside." I turned away, fumbling for a cigarette, lighting it with trembling hands. I took a deep drag, exhaling a plume of smoke, a bitter laugh catching in my throat. He walked over to me, gently taking the cigarette from my fingers. "Sophia," he murmured, his voice low and soothing, "you're sick. That's all. We'll get you help, okay? You'll get better." I blew a deliberate cloud of smoke towards his face. "Dr. Hale, I assure you, I'm perfectly fine. Now please leave. Sophia, you will be okay." Through the haze of smoke, his breathing seemed heavier, his hand gripping mine tightened slightly, trembling almost imperceptibly. Ignoring my half-hearted attempts to push him away, he pulled me into a hug, holding me firmly but gently. "Don't be afraid," he whispered against my hair. "I'm here." "Caleb, I'm sorry," I mumbled into his chest, the fight draining out of me. "I shouldn't have involved you. Just go." I pushed against him again, weakly, ash flaking onto the floor. His arms tightened, holding me fast. "Sophia," he said, his chin resting on the top of my head, his voice thick with emotion. "This time, I'm the one pursuing you." A wave of grief, sharp and overwhelming, washed over me. Like a stray cat finding unexpected shelter, I buried my face against his chest, clinging to him. If this was poison, then let me drink it down. A moment of warmth, however fleeting, was better than the endless, gnawing cold. Caleb gently took the cigarette from my fingers and stubbed it out. He used the cool pad of his thumb to wipe away a tear tracking down my cheek. "You don't want to sleep with me anymore, Sophia?" His voice held a hint of playful teasing, trying to coax a response. "Pity, because I still very much want to sleep with you." Despite everything, a watery chuckle escaped me. A tiny crack in the darkness. Caleb gently ruffled my hair, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. My fierce, thorny rose. Caleb transformed. The cool, slightly aloof young man became devoted. A constant, steady presence. He morphed from wolf pup to loyal retriever. Every day after his shift at the hospital, he drove across the sprawling city to my small suburban apartment. Seeing him arrive, still in his crisp white shirt, tie slightly loosened, looking tired but with a gentle smile reserved just for me. It did strange things to my battered heart. Dr. Hale, the disciplined, brilliant intern, calling me Sophia, Soph, my rose, dearest, his voice softening with affection, melted defenses I didn't know I still had. Amidst the sweet talk and quiet companionship, Caleb subtly colonized my space. He claimed the tiny spare room, officially designated as my office, bringing in a comfortable futon. Gradually, my sparse, functional furniture was replaced with warmer, cozier pieces he picked out. Fresh flowers appeared in vases I didn't own, filling the rooms with delicate scents. Slowly, painstakingly, the sterile apartment began to feel like a home. "Young Master Hale," I teased one evening, toweling my hair dry after a shower, "are you planning on setting up permanent residence here?" He was sitting at the small desk he'd installed, meticulously practicing surgical knots on a bunch of grapes, his brow furrowed in concentration. He glanced up, blinked slowly, then returned his focus to his task. "As long as my dearest stays, I stay." I had to admit, Caleb often reminded me of Marcus. Perhaps it was the shared profession, both surgeons, both possessing that innate calmness, precision, and tightly controlled strength. Both capable of intense focus, rarely showing outward emotion. Even now, watching Caleb's hands, scrubbed pale from disinfectant, long-fingered, moving with practiced dexterity, and the way his long lashes cast shadows on his cheekbones. It sent a disorienting flicker of déjà vu through me. He carefully snipped the final, perfect suture on a wounded grape before answering a call from Alex. "Caleb, man, what's going on?" Alex's voice came through the phone, urgent and concerned. I could hear it clearly from the doorway where I stood. After the call, Caleb seemed preoccupied. He came into the kitchen, starting to gather the dinner plates. I quickly stopped him. "No, Caleb, leave it. I'll do it." Just as I had with Marcus, I instinctively tried to shield Caleb from mundane chores. A surgeon's hands were precious instruments, meant for healing, not washing dishes. The thought of him getting even a small cut filled me with disproportionate anxiety. He hesitated, then began asking careful, roundabout questions. Had I taken my medication? How was my mood? Would I be upset if he had to leave for a while later? "Dr. Hale," I interrupted gently, trying to reassure him, "I'm fine. Really, please, trust your patient." I managed a smile and ushered him towards the door, watching him walk down the stairs, glancing back several times before disappearing from view. The apartment instantly felt cavernous and silent. Caleb was incredibly busy. Though he came straight here after work, the actual hours we spent together weren't that many. Yet, his presence permeated the space. His medical practice kit sat on the bookshelf, his favorite. Mug was by the sink, a half-finished Lego model occupied the coffee table. Even the new clothes he'd bought for me, filling my previously sparse closet, seemed imbued with his energy, waiting patiently for his return. Without him, the silence pressed in. I curled up on the sofa, intending to read, but quickly drifted off to sleep, the medication making me drowsy. I woke groggily sometime later, feeling myself being lifted. Caleb was gently placing me onto my bed, carefully tucking the covers around me. "You're back early," I mumbled, my voice thick with sleep. "Thought you said 3 a.m. It was only just past midnight." "Finished sooner than expected," he whispered, brushing a stray strand of hair from my face. His touch was featherlight. "Go back to sleep. I'm going to bed too." I blinked, reaching for the bedside lamp. The bottles of my medication on the nightstand were slightly rearranged. He'd checked them. My phone, lying beside the lamp, was inexplicably on silent mode. 10 missed calls from Caleb. No wonder his eyes looked red-rimmed, shadowed with exhaustion and worry. Had he been crying? A sharp pang went through my heart, a crack widening in the ice around it. Sunshine was beginning to filter through the gap in the curtains. Lately, I'd developed a habit of pestering Caleb. "Why do you like me? Really like me?" He usually deflected, changing the subject with practiced ease. Pushed too hard, he'd simply ask quietly, "Does love truly need a reason, Sophia?" "Of course it does. There's always a reason. Past lives, destiny, something." I was curled on the sofa, engrossed in a particularly tear-jerking K-drama, sobbing dramatically into a throw pillow. A sudden, violent sob lodged an almond I'd been munching on halfway down my throat. Caleb was beside me in an instant, pulling me upright, performing the Heimlich maneuver with calm efficiency. Once he was sure I could breathe properly, he gave me a stern look, then retreated back to his desk and his meticulous knot-tying practice without a word. A few minutes later, his voice came, quiet but clear, from across the room. "It's just like this." He paused, still facing away from me. "I've never been afraid of losing anyone or anything the way I'm afraid of losing you. Before I met you, Sophia, the world felt gray, unimportant. Now, with you, everything seems vibrant, precious." His back remained turned, presenting a cool, composed silhouette, but his words wrapped around my heart, warm and profoundly comforting. On the TV screen, the heartbroken male lead whispered at his lost love's grave, "If I hadn't met you, would you still be alive today? But if I hadn't met you, I never would have known such a beautiful May." Love. Such a sweet, terrifying, complicated thing. The suburban evenings held a certain charm, a gentle rhythm distinct from the city's frantic pulse. The local park square buzzed with quiet life. Aunties line danced energetically to cheerful music, couples strolled hand in hand, children shrieked with laughter, chasing each other under the twilight sky tinged with remnants of sunset. Time seemed to slow down here, stretching languidly, like a memory captured in oil paint. Caleb and I sat on the cool concrete base of an abstract sculpture, enjoying the evening breeze. He changed into basketball shorts and a white athletic tee, looking impossibly young and vibrant. Even the tendons behind his knees seemed to hum with youthful energy. He was undeniably handsome, with an air of quiet confidence that drew attention. Passers-by frequently glanced our way, their gazes lingering on him. Marcus had once complained, half jealously, about a female patient who feigned illness for a month just for the chance to see Caleb during his daily rounds. "Why are you always so convinced I don't genuinely like you, Sophia?" Caleb asked quietly, leaning back on his elbows, his voice slightly muffled as he spoke towards the ground behind me. "You could have anyone," I replied honestly, licking the sticky sweetness from the cone of cotton candy he'd just bought me. "Younger girls. Prettier girls. I've already chosen," he stated simply. "From the very first time I saw you, I thought, if I could spend my life with you, dating, marriage, kids, that would be everything." "The first time? At the bar?" I turned my head, trying to meet his eyes. His gaze flickered away, a brief moment of evasion. He shifted, looking towards the park. "No. Before that. Don't dwell on the past, sophomore." "Then what should I dwell on?" I pressed gently. He sat up properly then, resting his forearms on his knees, and turned to face me fully. He looked directly into my eyes, his expression achingly sincere, as if gazing upon something incredibly fragile and precious. "Just on loving you. Not just back then. What matters is now. And the future." Before I could respond, our quiet moment was interrupted by two figures. "Excuse me, can I get your WeChat?" A young woman, blushing prettily, held her phone out towards Caleb, her eyes downcast in shy admiration. Her friend stood beside her, grinning encouragingly, offering a quick, dismissive, "Hi, Auntie," in my direction. "Auntie?" The word stung more than it should have. "She's not my aunt," Caleb said flatly, before I could even process the insult. He stood up, pulling me gently to my feet beside him, his hand warm and firm in mine. The girls weren't easily deterred. They exchanged a quick glance, then stepped directly into our path. "Come on, handsome, don't play games," the friend persisted playfully. "We heard you call her dearest earlier." He hadn't, but clearly they'd overheard something. "So? Maybe I'm pursuing her. Is that a problem?" Caleb's voice was cold now, his grip on my hand tightening slightly. "Ooh, pursuing?" The friend nudged the shy girl forward. "That means there's still a chance." The shy girl thrust her phone towards Caleb. Again, the QR code scanner active on the screen. The pulsing green line illuminated Caleb's face, annoyed, handsome, and surprisingly vulnerable. A fierce, protective surge went through me. Unexpected. Undeniable. Maybe this means there isn't. Smiling sweetly at the two stunned girls, I reached up with my free hand, the one holding the rapidly melting cotton candy, hooked it around the back of Caleb's neck, pulled his head down towards mine, and kissed him. Slowly, deliberately, possessively. Right there, under the watchful eyes of the dancing aunties and the setting sun. Later that night, tangled together in the soft landscape of my bed, moonlight painting silver stripes across the sheets. "Sophia," Caleb murmured, his voice husky, his arm securely around me, his chin resting gently on the top of my head. "When did you start falling for me?" "When? Was it a single moment or a slow accumulation? Maybe when I was at my lowest, most broken, and he was the only one who stayed. Maybe it was the fierce, protective embrace in the hospital corridor when the world seemed ready to swallow me whole. Or maybe it was just moments ago, during our lovemaking, when he'd seen a single tear escape my eye in the dim light and immediately stopped, his voice filled with concern, asking gently if he'd hurt me. The memory brought a fresh wave of emotion, a sharp pang of remembered pain mingling with a profound, melting tenderness. I thought fleetingly of Marcus, of the countless nights spent in darkness, his focus solely on his own release, utterly oblivious to my feelings, my tears, my very presence beyond the physical. Even that brief flicker of thought didn't escape Caleb's notice. He sensed the subtle shift in my body, the momentary withdrawal. He tilted my chin up, his lips finding mine. "Stay with me now, Soph," he whispered against my mouth. "Just enjoy this. Sweetness and fire." His kiss deepened, demanding and yet exquisitely tender. Dr. Hale, it turned out, possessed hidden depths of persuasive power. Gentle exploration gave way to confident claiming. His hands, those skilled, sensitive surgeon's hands, mapped every curve, every hollow of my body, leaving trails of heat in their wake. "Dr. Hale," I gasped, pulling back slightly, looking up into his eyes, trying for playful accusation. "You are definitely not a beginner. Are you complimenting me, Sophia? A wicked glint sparked in his eyes as he lowered his head again, his forehead damp with exertion. Seeing my mock indignation, a slow, devastatingly attractive smirk spread across his face. He shifted his weight slightly, applying pressure in a way that sent a jolt of pure electricity through my entire nervous system. Words failed me as heat flooded my body, pulling low in my belly. I studied human anatomy, remember? Dr. Hale murmured, his lips brushing against my earlobe, sending shivers down my spine. What? I managed breathlessly. Finding the G-spot, he whispered conspiratorially. Piece of cake. Caleb Hale, you are incorrigible. Don't you like it? No, I lied, utterly undone. Shall I stop? No. No what? No, don't stop? Or no, don't go. It was a long, languid night filled with discovery and rediscovery. By the time the sky began to pale with the first blush of dawn, I was exhausted, sated, and utterly claimed. Sophia. Caleb murmured sleepily, nuzzling against my neck like a contented cat, his touch immediately reigniting embers I thought were banked. Caleb, I protested weakly, pushing gently against his chest, have mercy. You'll kill us both. Finally got my girl in my bed, he mumbled happily into my skin. Then, as if suddenly remembering something crucial, he lifted his head, his eyes bright and alert despite the hour. Wait a minute. Sophia Bellwether, you never actually agreed to be my girlfriend. Seizing the opportunity, I wriggled out of his embrace and made a dash for the safety of my own bedroom, the guest room he officially occupied. Cherish your life force, Dr. Hale, I called back over my shoulder, laughing. Ask me again after work tomorrow. Maybe I'll tell you then. The sun was shining brightly. My therapy session had gone well. The psychologist declared me stable, capable of navigating normal life again. My steps felt lighter, my outlook brighter than it had in months. Feeling celebratory, I stopped at a florist and bought a bouquet of vibrant, cheerful roses, not the deep, mournful crimson Marcus always favored, but a mix of sunny yellows and soft pinks. Tonight, I would tell Caleb yes. Officially. I had just gotten home, arranging the roses in a vase, when the hospital called. It was Dr. Peterson, the department head. Marcus had been injured. He was trying to save someone, Sophia, Dr. Peterson explained, his voice grave. He's asking for you. We really hope you'll consider coming. Of course, he added quickly, the decision is entirely yours. Hesitation warred within me. A reluctance to stir up the past, a fear of disappointing Caleb, but also a flicker of concern for Marcus. For all his flaws, hearing he was hurt, asking for me. It struck a dissonant chord. How much turmoil must that proud, reserved man be in to call for his ex-wife? I glanced at the clock, then looked out the window towards the small parking lot below. Caleb's white G-Wagon pulled in. He got out, dressed in his usual white shirt, carrying 2 grocery bags, and hurried towards the building entrance, his expression focused. A few minutes later, I was half-heartedly trying on a new dress Caleb had bought me, my mind elsewhere. Sophia, Caleb's voice came softly from behind me. He zipped up the dress, his hands gentle on my back. Do you want to go see him? I turned, meeting his steady gaze. His face was calm, unreadable. Will you be angry? Everyone needs closure, sophomore. He looked down, his eyes momentarily clouded with an emotion I couldn't name. Sometimes you have to face the past to move forward. Marcus was in an orthopedic ward. When I entered the room, only Isabel was with him. Seeing me, Marcus's eyes lit up with an intensity that startled me. I also saw the flicker of resentment, quickly masked, in Isabel's eyes as she registered his reaction. The proud Isabel Moreau, finding herself perhaps not quite as central to his world as she assumed. Pride, I mused, was often the most potent catalyst for love, especially when laced with insecurity. Isabel, it seemed, had finally fallen for Marcus, only to find herself potentially on the losing side. Sophia, Marcus said quietly after Isabel had made a cool, brief exit. The girl, her eyes looked like yours. He explained what happened. He'd gone up to the hospital roof for a cigarette yesterday evening and found a young woman perched precariously on the ledge. She had a terminal illness her boyfriend had abandoned her upon diagnosis, and she saw no reason to continue living. Marcus had lunged, grabbing her arm just as she jumped. He'd held on, straining against her dead weight, but ultimately, his grip failed. He'd watched, helpless, as she fell. A tragically common story, played out endlessly in the theater of human suffering. Saving someone dangling from a ledge often only happened in movies. Now, Marcus lay half-reclined in the hospital bed, his arms suspended in a sling, his usually composed face pale and drawn. His eyes were shadowed, haunted. Flowers and fruit baskets, tokens of sympathy from colleagues and grateful patients, crowded the small room. Dr. Peterson had mentioned Marcus had exerted superhuman strength trying to hold on to the girl. "You did everything you could," I said softly, peeling an apple for him, the familiar, domestic action feeling strangely alien now. "You tried your best. Doctors needed emotional detachment to survive, but Marcus, despite his brilliance, was still young. Facing such a traumatic event head-on had clearly shaken him to the core. "Sophia," he said, his voice low in that moment. "I thought of you." When she let go, she smiled just before. She said, "It hurts too much." Let go. Just like that. So calm. Like you on the day we divorced, saying, "The rain's too heavy. Let's go home." A deep melancholy settled in his eyes. "Do you remember, Sophia? Last year, when I was deployed for that emergency response in Wuhan, you called me every single day. I got so annoyed sometimes. But looking back now, trapped in that suffocating PP, dreading each shift, I realized the one thing I actually looked forward to each day was your call. Always right on time." He paused, his gaze distant. "After you left, the apartment was just empty. No one waiting. I always thought you were the one who couldn't live without me. I never realized you were like a slow-acting poison, Sophia, filling up all the spaces in my life without me even noticing, until you were gone. What's past is prologue. We were living echoes of poems I didn't know then." I handed him the peeled apple, suddenly unsure what to say. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken regrets. "Time for your medication." Caleb stood in the doorway, holding a small paper cup and a chart. He walked in, ignoring Marcus's gaze, and efficiently administered the medication. Checked Marcus's vitals, asked a few brief, professional questions about his condition, making notes on the chart. His face was an impassive mask. Finished, he walked over to me, leaned down slightly, and gently ruffled my hair, a clear, possessive gesture. "Soph," he said softly, his eyes meeting mine, "I'll drive you home in a bit." "You two are together?" Marcus asked after Caleb had shut the door quietly behind him. He held the untouched apple, his knuckles white. He looked directly at me then, his dark eyes filled with a raw, pleading vulnerability I'd never seen before. "Sophia, do I still have a chance?" My heart remained still. No anger, no pity, not even sadness. Just quiet. It was astonishing how much distance could be created by time and trauma. 6 months, a bout of severe depression. It had somehow scoured away the raw, tearing pain, leaving only a faint, faded stain, like old blood on worn fabric. "The water in your cup must be cold," I said, reaching for the glass on his bedside table. "Let me get you some fresh." Marcus reached out, his fingers brushing mine, trying to stop me. I instinctively recoiled, stepping back just out of reach, avoiding his touch. The movement felt awkward, final. As I turned away, heading towards the water cooler down the hall, fragmented memories surfaced. The dazzling boy on the stage at the high school opening ceremony, bathed in sunlight, seeming impossibly bright and distant. 11 years blurred past, moments of unexpected sweetness during the brief honeymoon phase, followed by years of lonely nights, quiet resentments, desperate attempts to please, the constant push and pull of his indifference. All of it now seemed like scenes from someone else's life, colors faded, edges blurred. That chapter, it seemed, had finally, quietly closed. The hospital corridor hummed with its own unique symphony of quiet desperation and resilient hope. Beeping machines, hushed conversations, the squeak of nurses' shoes on linoleum. Down the hall, near the elevators, a small group huddled together, faces etched with worry. Sarah was the baseline here. I fiddled with the empty water cup in my hands, staring out the large window at the end of the corridor. The setting sun painted streaks of orange and purple across the cityscape, a fleeting masterpiece sketched against the encroaching dusk. I went through the fire of marriage, I thought, and didn't even get a ring out of it. Yet the experience, the myriad pains and the few precious joys, had left their mark, like the faint indentation on a finger where a ring once sat. Maybe it's only at the precipice, staring into the abyss of loss, of life, of love, of marriage, that certain truths become clear. About choices and sacrifices. About learning to love oneself. About the profound, life-altering power of a single, fearless embrace. And the irony was, all these lessons, they weren't learned from my husband. They were taught to me, patiently, persistently, by another man entirely. Sophia. A familiar voice beside me broke through my reverie. I turned, offering Caleb a small smile. Finished with your rounds? Yeah. His gaze flickered to the empty cup in my hand, Marcus's cup. A fleeting shadow of uncertainty crossed his face. Still feeling soft-hearted? He asked quietly. I dropped the smile, feigning indignation. Dr. Hale, shouldn't doctors strive for compassion towards all their patients? You robbed me of my reason, Sophia, and now you demand I think clearly, Caleb muttered, shoving his hands into the pockets of his white coat, his brow furrowed. He turned and started walking away down the corridor. Hey, why so serious all of a sudden? I grumbled under my breath, a flicker of frustrated affection rising. Honestly, the man could be infuriatingly proper sometimes. But after a moment's hesitation, a small, determined smile touched my lips. I hurried after him. Caleb walked with purpose, his back straight, shoulders set. I fell into step behind him, watching the steady rhythm of his stride for a few moments. Then, impulsively, I reached out and lightly grasped the hem of his white coat. He faltered for a split second, his stride momentarily broken, but he didn't stop, didn't turn around. He just kept walking, letting me trail behind him like a child clinging to a parent's clothes. A wave of giddy relief, mixed with a touch of triumphant affection, washed over me. Just like this. Letting him lead me forward, past the curious or sympathetic glances of strangers, past the rooms holding stories of life and death, just walking together. Suddenly, a strong, warm hand covered mine, gently detaching my fingers from his coat hem. Before I could react, he laced his fingers through mine and pulled my hand firmly into the deep pocket of his white coat, tucking it securely against his side. Glancing sideways, I saw a slow, warm smile finally break through Dr. Hale's usual cool composure. And in that moment, walking hand in hand down the sterile hospital corridor, leaving the ghosts of the past behind us, all I could think was, I hope this walk never ends.